first on Guam.
KUAM News, winner of the 2022 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Culture Club.
KUAM News Hotspot is brought to you by
Pacific Points, Do More, Get More, and Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Afade and welcome to the Hotspot, everybody. Fridays are my days because it is the end of the work week, so we got a great island weekend ahead, but we got a lot to tell you about, a lot to show you, a lot to get interactive with, and some movie tickets to give away. So, ready for the Hotspot? Let's start now.
The menu, brought to you by King's Restaurant, always open, always local, and Ruby Tuesday Guam, home of the Fresh Garden Bar.
We are going to tell you about a pair of mom-and-pop stores up north being robbed with the suspect remaining at large. Residents of the island of Puerto Rico attempt to recover after destruction caused by the hurricane. The Guam Election Commission confirms Peter Santos can run as a write-in candidate in the AG race. And Nestor Locanto will join us at the bottom half of the hour. Another half hour of political analysis with The Hub. That is coming up. But first off, as we broke on social media this morning, a pair of men have been placed under arrest in connection to several robbery investigations, to include the man wanted by police earlier this week. Brandon Flores, who is 24, was arrested on suspicion of robbery, burglary, terrorizing, theft, illegal drug possession and manufacturing, reckless conduct, and license plate forgery and fraud. GPD also said this week that Flores was wanted in connection to an August 22nd armed robbery, the one we've been telling you about, up at the gas station in Jigo at Shell. Javak Chitaro, 22, was also arrested on suspicion of robbery, using a deadly weapon in the commission of a felony, burglarizing, terrorism, theft, illegal drug possession, and promoting prison contraband. Police reports state that he was arrested in connection to similar robbery investigations in which Flores allegedly was involved. There is no word yet if the pair are being linked to the armed robbery reported at two local stores in Dedido and Jigo on Wednesday night. Police Chief Stephen Ignacio says he'll discuss the robbery arrests at a press conference later today. Well, while arrests were made for other robberies, it was quite the frightening moment for workers at two mom-and-pop stores in the northern end of the island. Workers and customers alike described the perpetrators as being a peaceful place to shop, suddenly turned upside down. The robberies happened just minutes apart of one another, with one of the suspects speaking with KUAM.
It's an experience becoming all too familiar for small stores and business owners, being held at gunpoint by a robber. Cheris Market in Dedido and Son's convenience store in Jigo were robbed just 30 minutes apart. Police suspect it's the same man responsible. The gunman first targeting the Dedido store. Employees tell us he got away with nearly $1,000 in cash. The area is described to be a peaceful place for shoppers, like these two men who are regulars at the store.
Are you guys surprised that your favorite store got robbed?
Yeah. Son's convenience store in Jigo was hit a half hour later. The employee working last night still in shock over her encounter with the robber.
He did pull up his shirt
To show
the
you?
second time he asked me to take out the money from my girl. He came in and walked in and then he walked back. He touched our sunglasses and then he came up here.
And he just like showed you?
Yeah, the first time he's like, give me your money. I'm like, huh? What money? And then he like walked towards us and he pulled up his shirt like, give me your money.
Police say the robber is described as standing about 5'8" to 5'9", weighing 170 to 180 pounds with a dark complexion. Employees from Cheris Market said he was last seen wearing a baseball cap with a white logo, a blue long-sleeve jacket with a banana print design, dark pants and slippers. Workers at Son's convenience store say the gunman was wearing a dark shirt, a black mask, a black hat with a white logo, and dark-colored pants. Both stores say the man got away in a dark-colored sedan. Authorities are asking anyone with information to call GPD at 671-475-8615.
All right, thanks so much. Our Hannah Devanzo reporting. Also from the Island Crime Beat, 31-year-old Alan Cepeda was arrested and charged with drug possession while on felony release. A magistrate's complaint said on the 21st of this month, police were conducting a suspect check on Cepeda Road because of an active $3,000 bench warrant issued for the man. Despite telling police he didn't have any contraband on him, police found a small plastic baggie with a substance inside testing positive for meth. Cepeda currently has a pending drug charge against him. To education now, as schools are falling apart with termite and rodent infestation and mold in classrooms. The health and safety of local students at 2 local middle schools is now being held under a microscope, with the problems having surfaced after community complaints surfaced after conditions at the campus. KUAM's Matsuki Hirayama has our next story.
Public school students will be shuffled. That's what's happening for at least 2 local middle schools. The Guam Department of Education getting notice Ocean View Middle and Hoggett in desperate need of repairs. Public health inspectors also finding moldy classrooms with weak walls and ceilings, termite and rodent infestation, and multiple leaks. Students at the Home of the Knights now being moved to areas of the campus still considered safe enough. The plan is to move them to areas in Southern High over the holiday break in December so repairs can be made. In Jigo at FB Leon Guerrero Middle School, recent images show a chunk of the ceiling broken off and on the ground. The issue showcasing other problems at the Home of the Hawks. Education officials now waiting for a structural engineer report to move fast before deciding to move the students to certain areas of the campus or to completely relocate them to another school. The problems are nothing new for the department, the community sounding off on our social media. Marie Solis writes, "This neglect on the continuity on maintenance of all Gov Guam-owned buildings, especially schools and its dire necessities, such as air conditioners, have been ongoing for years and years. It will take a community to work together to ensure the continuity on maintenance and upkeep. Community means all leaderships who are involved on ensuring on making it a first and top priority." Chris Brett adds, "I listened to a person from the community that cited population size at one of these campuses. Made me think, is it really broken schools or just too big of a campus? Never a good idea to place a middle school at a high school in my opinion. Maybe we revisit junior high." Cam Therese saying, "My daughter who attends FB has been complaining of the roof of some hallways falling apart and the gym is unsafe. I really hope they don't wait till a child is hurt from this before actually taking action." Eddie Castro chimes in, "Since I started elementary to middle to high school, they all needed repair. To top it off, we never even had aircon." Darlene Diane comments, "The children of God always suffers only when it's time to vote. It's important for all running. Please remember when and how things were different back in our days. Just saying." GDOE is working with senators and the governor to find resources quickly. The Education Board this week approved the facilities master plan, which will allow DOE to look at improvements needed at all campuses. Matsuki Hirayama, KUAM News.
Well, on the other side of the world, apart from us, Hurricane Fiona is picking up steam, heading towards Bermuda, while in Puerto Rico, hundreds of thousands on the island still lack electricity and water after the storm is wreaking havoc across the Caribbean.
Satellite images show bridges in Puerto Rico before and after Hurricane Fiona brought catastrophic flooding to the island, isolating some areas entirely. With hundreds of thousands of residents still without access to clean water 4 days after the storm hit, the U.S. military helped distribute bottled water to victims. And with much of the island still without electricity, drivers waited in long lines to get gas for their generators.
I'm here because we're laser focused on what's happening to the people of Puerto Rico again.
President Biden, who declared a major disaster in Puerto Rico, was briefed about relief efforts Thursday.
And we'll do everything we can to meet the urgent needs you have, and we know they're real and they're significant.
At this Puerto Rican restaurant in Miami, many are concerned about this latest disaster to strike the island, which comes 5 years after Hurricane Maria caused widespread damage and destruction there.
My heart is destroyed in so many pieces right now.
Maritza Parilla says she wishes she could help her family members back home, still dealing with the aftermath.
As far as I heard, my family member are without electricity, water.
Much of Puerto Rico is still recovering from Maria. Thousands of homes, roads, and recreational areas have yet to be fixed. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
Back here in the 671, Attorney General write-in candidate Peter Santos is in fact eligible to run in the general election. That issue topped the agenda of the Guam Election Commission's Board of Directors meeting, with GEC legal counsel Vince Camacho said that the statute is absolutely clear.
There's nothing in this language that says we can't have a write-in candidate. It just says whoever garners the most votes in the general election, you will have to certify, subject to the certification of the Guam Election Commission. So if you take that language that doesn't prohibit a write-in candidate, and you go to section 7108 and you read that in concert, it begs the question, what does the Guam Election Commission have to do? In general, when we have two statutes that may have not necessarily conflicting, because the statutes don't conflict, but the more specific statute with regard to Guam Election Commission is that you have to include a write-in candidate. Then we go to the Attorney General's statute and it doesn't prohibit it, and it in fact says that you still, whoever wins in the general, you're still subject to certifying whether that person qualifies. So you read that together, and I don't see any conflict between the two statutes.
EOG professor and political analyst Dr. Ron McNinch has challenged the write-in candidacy of Attorney Santos, who did not run in the primary. Camacho was asked by the commission to review that complaint. Back to international headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin is facing backlash at the UN over his war in the Ukraine. He's also facing backlash at home after ordering a partial mobilization of thousands of reservists to fight in the country. At the UN today, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Putin is adding, quote, fuel to the fire that he started.
Because if Russia stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends.
Before the United Nations Security Council, the U.S. Secretary of State slammed Russia's war on Ukraine and Russian President Vladimir Putin's order to mobilize thousands of reserve fighters.
That President Putin picked this week, as most of the world gathers at the United Nations, to add fuel to the fire that he started, shows his utter contempt for the UN Charter, for the General Assembly, and for this Council.
In Russia, protests broke out against Putin's order. Cars with those hoping to flee have surged at the border with Finland, and prices for flights, many sold out, have skyrocketed.
I feel that not really lots of Russian people want to fight.
Putin's announcement to call up more troops follows heavy military losses in Ukraine. He also said he'll use all available means to protect Russia, adding, quote, those who try to blackmail us with nuclear weapons should know that the wind can turn their way.
After Mr. Putin's address, Russian separatists abruptly released several prisoners of war, including 2 U.S. military veterans from Alabama.
I'm hoping within the next week or two that they could be back on Alabama soil.
Their release comes as Ukraine's president said hundreds of detained Ukrainians were also freed in a prisoner swap. Deborah Alfarone reporting for KUAM News.
It is time, my friends, because it is the end of the week for Feed Me Fridays, where our Daniel Perez is hitting the kitchen and he is going to whip up a classic recipe, a yummy milkshake using Devondale milk. Check it out.
It's Feed Me Fridays on KUAM News Hotspot, brought to you by Devondale, real milk from free grazing cows.
Top of day, everybody. Welcome to Feed Me Fridays. We have something really simple and really special. We're just keeping it simple, making milkshakes with Devondale milk, Smucker's strawberry flavored, and some good old-fashioned ice cream. So let's get right to it. First off, since we are from Guam and I am Filipino, I am not gonna follow recipes. I'm just gonna eyeball this because that's what we do, right? So, woo, look at that Devondale milk. Bit too much? A little bit more. All right, that looks just right to me. Now let's add in the delicious strawberry jam. Oh guys, look at that, man. If only you could see how thick that is. All right. If I remember how to use this blender. Forgive me if I don't know how, but that's why we're gonna try. There you go. There you go. Now it's starting to look like a strawberry milkshake with just a little hint of vanilla and Devondale milk. Now, Oh, guys, that smells real good. Little taste test. Here we go. Oh, wow, yeah, definitely. That is the stuff. So, if you guys are bored or just, like to bored eat like me or bored drink, this is pretty easy to make. All you need is Devondale, Smucker's ice cream, and you're good to go. Well, that just about does it for this Feed Me Fridays, guys. I've been your host, Daniel Perez, and we'll see you next week, Friday.
It's Feed Me Fridays on KUAM News Hotspot, brought to you by Devondale, real milk for free grazing cows.
Outstanding, Daniel. Now remember, if you want to see Daniel's recipe, just go to our YouTube channel. It's really, really easy to do, obviously. He can knock that out in like a minute and a half. That was real time, by the way, so make sure to check that out and let him know what you think about it. All right, we have a prize for you if you know your Tinseltown trivia. This week, of course, we were asking you exactly, if you would like to pass us to the movie, who is the actress? And she's won awards at the highest level. She's won an Academy. Who is that actress that stars in the new film, The Woman King? Of course, the answer is Viola Davis. Many of you got back to us, you DM'd us, you even emailed me. So, our winners, picked completely at random, Brenda Adello, who emailed me on Gmail, so thank you so much, Brenda, well done. Robert Barcinas also won, and on IG, Instagram, if you're old like me, Jack Martinez, otherwise known to the rest of you Instagram folks as JoshMo777. They are going to the movies, courtesy of our friends at Tango Theaters, so congratulations and well done to all of you. Well, speaking of, before we get to our weekly question, speaking of the movies, Constance Kamat, also our good friend at Tango Theaters, wanted me to pass along to you that they are re-releasing the remastered Avatar beginning today, with most shows in stunning 3 dimensions, and several of them will be in 2D. So if you want to re-experience Avatar in a completely new way, even the poster looks awesome. It is back in theaters, and you can go check it out. So head over to Tango Theaters. Please see it in 3D, because it is, I mean, if you thought your mind was blown before, this is really, really going to blow you away. So thank you to Constance again, and congratulations to our winners. All right. Once again, if you didn't know by now and you didn't check your calendar, it is Friday, so we're going to let you know what your best responses were to this week's weekly question. Of course, at the top of the week, we did ask if you think enough is being done to address the deteriorating school facilities. Obviously, we covered a lot of education news this weekend, or this week, regarding exactly that. Bobby on Instagram says, ugh. That's a definite no. More should be done, she writes. Our kids are the ones suffering. If we want to evolve productive kids and young adults, we need to instill a positive, safe, and conducive learning environment. That means safe and structurally fit facilities. She also says, I understand it's about the money, but when will it ever be a priority for all our lawmakers? Ooh, burn. We as parents have been waiting, and I have a few kids past graduated, she writes, and we're still waiting. Bobby, fantastic, fantastic thoughts. Also on Instagram, Marie writes, no, no, no. No need to ask this if it addresses the matter of the school. It should be a priority. Kids come first. They're our future, because once they get elected, it's like they forget all their promises, talking about the politicians, of course. A lot of schools that are older need repairs. Noah also on Instagram. Man, Instagram was popping this week. Is that what the kids say? Don't let a crisis go to waste, he says. The American Rescue Plan Fund should have been used since the final rule came out in April. Summer break was a good time to start, Noah says. The administration can use it immediately. And on Facebook, we did get a Facebook response this week. This is from Nicole, who says that's a definite big no. So sad for our kids, in all caps, by the way, so you know she's very passionate about this. Where's all the money? It should be used on more important things like fixing the schools, the structure, aircon, and more, hiring more school aides, and stop hiring where it's not needed. Just saying. Very, very good thoughts. All right, Nicole, we will have a new question on Monday. All right, everybody, it is Friday. We keep saying it's Friday, right? And there is a game streaming right now on Amazon. If you're watching our show, apparently you don't like the Steelers versus the Browns. But coming up this week, we have college football, so we want to make sure and check out the game that is going to pit the Florida Gators against the Tennessee Volunteers. So is it good to be a Florida Gator, or are you going to be saying, we're from Rocky Top? Whatever side of the SEC divide you fit on, that is a classic match. Peyton Manning, Tim Tebow, classic. So make sure to check out the Gators and the Vols on KUAM TV 11. That is on Friday, or Saturday, I should say. Our game for the NFL on Monday, this is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Indianapolis Colts. That is going to be a good one. So you got Patrick Mahomes on one side, you got former MVP Matt Ryan on the other. Firepower all over the field, so make sure to check that out. And then Sunday Night Football, you saw Russell Wilson in his new threads. Of course, he is under center now for the Denver Broncos. He is going head-to-head against the 49ers. So many of our managers here will probably be coming in late that day. So it's a big, big day for all of you Niner fans. I have an 8x10 glossy that was signed by Joe Montana back in 1987. That's going with me into my casket. So Niners and the Broncos, that is coming up on Sunday Night Football on Monday for us. All right, you know what goes good with football? Pot pie. Chicken pot pie specifically. And our friends at KFC have hooked us up today. When we come back, Nestor Lecanto and I are going to tell you all about National Pot Pie Day and how you can partake by checking out our friends at KFC. That is coming up next.
KUAM News, winner of the 2022 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Culture Club.
What would Setlu do to protect Island Dono, also known as Coco's Island? Dono hosts many native animals that are no longer found in Guam. The koku, sali, slevin, skink, and many other animals live among the native plants in Dono. Brown tree snakes, rodents, little fire ants, and pets can harm native wildlife. How can we keep these few remaining native animals safe on Dono? Inspect to protect. For departing for Dono, inspect boats and cargo for pests and signs of pests. Animal hairs, animal droppings, chewed wires, snake sheds. Use onboard bait stations, close entrances. Look for holes, pathways, and hiding places for pests to enter and hide in your vessel. Keep your vessel clean. Don't leave food out overnight. The Guam Department of Agriculture Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources urges everyone to join in the effort to Protehi Islandano contra y Calepla. Challenge the snake.
Dance party.
Let's go.
When inspiration strikes, say yes with the new Priority Unlimited credit card from First Hawaiian Bank. Wherever you shop, whatever you're shopping for, you can earn 2% cash back on everything you buy. From small stuff to big stuff to stuff you want. A card that rewards you for every purchase and helps you stay connected to everything that matters.
Today, I'm Kelina from Doc's Kitty College.
And I'm Kristen from Doc's Daycare and Preschool.
And we are so honored to be caring for the children of Guam. The Governor's Child Care programs help businesses like ours to really focus on the kids. These programs also help nonprofits and after-school programs and grandparents and so many families.
Visit www.guamchildcare.com to learn more about the Governor's Child Care programs. This ad is paid for with funds administered by DPHSS.
With Pacific Points, your everyday expenses could be helping you save. Earn points at Shell, Foodies Guam, and IT&E. Then redeem for awesome rewards. Want free fuel from Shell or snacks from Foodies Guam? What about discounts on your IT&E bill, free IT&E prepaid cards, or United Mileage Plus Miles? Sign up for free today. Visit PacificPoints.com or download the app. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
It's news in our native language on the KUAM News Tomorrow News Updates, streaming online on Isla Radio and on the KUAM News YouTube channel. It's part of our ongoing commitment to sustain and perpetuate our language and culture across generations. Tomorrow News Updates are brought to you by your familia at First Hawaiian Bank.
All right, welcome back to the show. Without further ado, Nestor Lecanto is here. Ness, you have the hub coming up at the bottom half of the hour.
We have Ginger Cruz and Sean Gumatato here. They're ready to talk politics.
We're going to talk about some politics, but we have some politics of our own because the politics of amazing food is on display right now. You may not know, but today is National Pot Pie Day, and the good friends that we have over at KFC, they're all over the island. They've brought their delicious pot pies to our set to celebrate. I eat this stuff, Ness, all the time. When it's raining, when it's hot, when I'm bored. I love pot pies, especially KFC. The chicken pot pie. I mean, I'm half Howley. I grew up on pot pies.
Yeah, Jason, I talked to my good friend over at KFC, Frank Cruz, and
Frank?
he reassured me that KFC's chicken pot pie is packed with lots of shredded white and dark meat, chicken, potatoes, peas, and carrots, all of it swimming in a delicious creamy gravy and topped with a tantalizing flaky crust. It seems more like homemade food than fast food. And I would be remiss, Jason, if I didn't tell you that pot pies are made fresh every day.
Well, never mind pot pie. That's pot poetry right there. It rolls off the tongue. But what we want you to do is actually put these delicious meals in your mouth. And again, for those of you watching the Steelers and the Browns right now on Amazon Prime, because yeah, they do NFL now. They started out selling books. Now they broadcast football games, apparently. Pot pies go great with football. If you're watching any of the college games or the NFL that we've got this weekend on KUAM TV, get yourself some KFC pot pies, too. They're amazing. Now, Nestor, I've got some facts for you, right, while you dig in.
I know you researched this very extensively.
Exactly. Okay, so pot pies, if you did not know, they've got their roots in the Neolithic age. And they were based on discoveries made by archaeologists as the ancient Greeks, this goes all the way back to antiquity, they would cook meats in pastry shells known as and my Greek pronunciation is kind of off, but I believe it's artokrias. Artokrias. We got to ask Giannis Antetokounmpo about that. Yeah, of course. Now, it later spread to our friends, the Romans. So this moved throughout history and medieval Europe during the Crusades. The Crusades had pot pies, you guys, and in the 16th century, the English revived the practice of serving pot pies where they are commonly known as meat pies. I also know the late defunct Queen Elizabeth. She enjoyed pot pies herself. They're also known as meat pies, of course, and very, very popular today. Now, if you did not know, as Nestor just said, way classier than I ever could, right? A pot pie is any combination of meat and vegetables with a flaky pastry crust, and of course, KFC nailed that part. I mean, I live for just a crust. All right. In the U.S., all right, we're going to get domestic on this. The National Great American Pot Pie Day was created about 20 years ago, exactly, in 2002 by Marie Callender's. Talk about people who know about pot pie. Have you ever had Marie Callender's?
I have not.
They make really, really good stuff. They also make really good regular pies. They make cherry pie, strawberry pie. You ever had strawberry pie?
I have.
Strawberry pie is good. I believe that's also a Beatles song. KFC is hands down the best place locally, though. Now we're staying in the 671. If you want to get your chicken pot pie fix, go check out KFC. Now, the only thing that I know is missing from this, and again, thanks to Uncle Frank for setting this up, we are missing one thing that is absolutely critical to any partaking of a KFC meal, Nestor. Where's the sporks?
Yeah,
right, we got regular forks.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to do my Filipino style and do a fork and a spoon, but we only have a fork. So.
Okay, well, that's all right. Okay. Now, if you see Nestor, I mean, this is a true craftsman, a master at work here. He went right in the middle. I'm actually drawing on my Caucasian heritage, right? And I'm going all the way around the middle.
Oh, that's good.
And I'm going to mix it because I like...
Frank wasn't kidding.
Yeah, I like the crust. So you can even take the crust right off the edge, as I just did. It is flaky. It is crispy. It is filling. We needed this about 4 days ago when it was raining 23 hours a day.
Hot too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as Frank said, the thing that makes the KFC pot pie so distinct, it's shredded chicken.
Yeah, and we got staff lined up outside ready to pounce on this once we're done.
I'm quite sure. Yeah.
Excellent. That's good.
Okay, this is absolutely fantastic. So again, you've got your vegetables, you've got your chicken, so you get your protein, you've got that sauce that binds it all together, and you've got the amazing crust. By my math, that's at least 4 out of 5 major food groups. I got you covered right there. And remember, today is National Pot Pie Day, so KFC wants to celebrate and they want to indoctrinate you into the miracle of modern culinary arts that is the pot pie. So please go there. Tell them Nestor and Jace sent you. They're going to hook you up. And please stay tuned because, once again, Nestor is going to be...
over there.
Yeah. On a semi-full stomach, by the way. So so always breaking the rules of journalism here. Like, we had assignment number 1. Now you got assignment number 2 awaiting you.
Yep. All right.
All right. So please stay tuned. The Hub is coming up next. Ness has work to do. I am going to go get some pot pie.
There's epic, then there's ultra epic. Capture life in vivid resolution with Galaxy's most advanced camera system and the built-in S Pen that puts you in control. Every moment, every angle, from sunrise to sundown and beyond. More striking, more stunning than ever. Find the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra at your nearest iTunes store or online at ite.net and change the way you work and play.
As the Decision 2022 race shapes up, keep it with KUAM News for all the news you need to know as you head to the polls. From weekly candidate profile analysis on the Hub on KUAM News HotSpot to our online candidate directory on KUAM.com, special features on KUAM Digital and KUAM News Primetime, plus live coverage of forums and debates. We're your one-stop source on every platform. Stay informed with KUAM News, your news leader, the voice of the Marianas.
Half a day, I'm Fiona from Doc's Kitty College.
And I'm Kristen from Doc's Daycare and Preschool.
And we are so honored to be caring for the children of Guam. The governor's child care programs help businesses like ours to really focus on the kids. These programs also help nonprofits and after-school programs and grandparents and so many families.
Visit www.guamchildcare.com to learn more about the governor's child care programs. This ad is paid for with funds administered by DPHSS.
Dance party.
Let's go.
When inspiration strikes, say yes with the new Priority Unlimited credit card from First Hawaiian Bank. Wherever you shop, whatever you're shopping for, you can earn 2% cash back on everything you buy. From small stuff to big stuff to stuff you want. A card that rewards you for every purchase and helps you stay connected to everything that matters.
With Pacific Points, your everyday expenses could be helping you save. Earn points at Shell, Foodies Guam, and IT&E. Then redeem for awesome rewards. Want free fuel from Shell or snacks from Foodies Guam? What about discounts on your IT&E bill, free IT&E prepaid cards, or United Mileage Plus Miles? Sign up for free today. Visit PacificPoints.com or download the app. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
Stay on top of breaking news and the biggest stories of the day with NBC News Daily. Get in-depth reporting from across the country and around the world, tips to take care of your health and your wallet, and up-to-the-minute local news. NBC News Daily, weekdays on NBC.
Watch Mariana's artists, activists, and visionaries and their quest to protect, preserve, and promote our Chamorro culture on The Culture Club, a weekly feature on KUAM News digital platforms and the KUAM News Weekend Edition. Brought to you by Tropical Ice.
1, 2, 3.
The Culture Club, winner of the 2022 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
This year, we're expanding our Decision 2022 platform to include comprehensive coverage of the election in the Northern Marianas. Stay with KUAM News for candidate conversations on Pacific matters, interviews with the gubernatorial teams, coverage of debates and forums, and live coverage on the general election night. We're your news leader, the voice of the Marianas.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Hub, our weekly look at all things politics. And our guest today is our good colleague, Ginger Cruz, who is the senior advisor for the Lou and Josh campaign and the senior advisor for the Camacho Ada campaign. That's Sean Gumatato.
I was having a flashback, actually. If I was working at the time when you guys were on the news, I might have been doing sports sitting right here.
That's right,
actually.
yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Months ago, but anyhow, I digress.
Flashback. All right, so I wanted to start off with a talk about the youth vote. And what one of our reporters, Hannah Devanzo, went out and did kind of a man on the street. You guys are familiar with those kinds of reports, and tried to gauge, some reaction from younger voters. And what she found was kind of a mix. Some were, very much into politics and did indicate that they would be voting, but many others kind of were ambivalent towards the election. And I wanted to get your take on the youth vote, because I know, Ginger, you've crunched some numbers and found that it's actually very low compared to, what it was maybe 20 years ago. So let me start with you. What do you? How would you assess the current youth vote?
Well, I think it's a reflection of the youth in general. And I wouldn't even say youth so much as, sort of the 18 to 35-year-olds. I mean, young professionals in, getting to be in the prime of their career that are generally less engaged in elections. And I think it's not just elections. I think it's in government as a whole. It is sort of a jaded perception of politics. And sort of this idea that somehow politics, sort of lives over here and their lives are in front of them and the things that they can do are what they want to focus on. And politics is just sort of this noise, and it's reduced to tweets and Facebook posts. And, sometimes they just get frustrated by the whole thing and dismiss it from their lives. And I think really it's incumbent upon all politicians, all of government, to recognize that and to bring the community back in, to have them understand how government really needs the engagement of everybody in order to work properly, because government is about people. I mean, that's what democracies are about. And people need to understand, especially on a small island like Guam, that, 100 votes can make a difference in who it is who represents them, and who represents them makes a difference in what the laws are going to be. And when those laws don't reflect people anymore, and it starts to create bad policy, everybody has to live under that bad policy. But it's making that connection, drawing those lines, that I think all government officials, everybody running for office, needs to do a better job of drawing that line.
Sean, what's your sense of the youth vote?
When you watch that story, she was actually at, I think it was at Guam Community College. So when you think about services and the policies that are geared toward young people, in this case, those that are trying to get an education, it is important for all of us to understand that we have to reach them because they're that end user, and to remind them of that. I think sometimes there's that forgetfulness that, okay, if you don't vote, well, how do you expect certain things to change at those institutions that you're at today? I teach at the University of Guam, and it's interesting to see how they're talking about issues when I'm running around the campus. They're watching it. In some cases, they're very well, I'll wait till later, or where can I register? Believe it or not, even though we're at this point in the cycle, they're still trying to think, oh, maybe I'll register. But if I'm not mistaken, we've had more young people register for this particular election than the most, probably the most in the history of our Guam elections, which is pretty encouraging. But registering and voting are really two different things.
Yeah, does it translate into votes, I think?
Right.
This is a follow-up question to that. And will it, do you think?
Well, we hope so. I think all of us, both sides of the aisle, are hoping that when these young people are going out there, and in some cases when they're getting their driver's license, that they tick that box, and hopefully that when it's time to be asked to tick a box again to elect their new leaders, that they'll do so.
Yeah, Ginger, from a campaign perspective, how do you engage the younger voters? You mentioned, social media. Is that the way to get to them?
This is where I show my age, right? I mean, we really have a lot of new dynamic folks who are understanding the power of Facebook, the power of Twitter, the power of Instagram, the power of TikTok. And the challenge for some of us older folks is, how do you take the message of what you see as the future of Guam and distill it down into a tweet, or distill it down into a TikTok that's catchy enough to get everybody's attention, but informative enough to really let them know what's going on? So I think that is something that you see a lot more of that going on. Everybody on Guam is on Facebook. And so shifting to that platform and reaching out, I think, is a key.
Yeah. And Sean, Facebook, even that is considered kind of like more for the older persons, right? So you have to be even more targeted when you try to reach out to, don't you?
Yeah, and also using the things that they actually are gravitating to. Is it the story? Is it these little tidbits that are a part of the Instagram? Come on, Instagram's pretty deep. So even for guys like me, and it's funny, asking a 51-year-old man what we should be doing on Instagram, we should be asking other people. But it's listening to them and trying to get those types of messages that reach to young voters. What are we going to do in basic terms to help encourage more the protection of safety, encourage health and education. So it's a challenge for everyone.
Yeah. Looking forward, though, do you think how are the parties gonna engage the youth? Because you got to fill your bench, right? You got to constantly going forward, for the success of the party, and your policies and your principles and your positions, you need to have people coming up the ranks too, right?
That's true.
How are you going to do that?
Well, on the Democratic side, I mean, in the party, we've got some very young candidates, and I think that is something that really is sort of energizing our base. So when we have sort of the Democratic get-togethers, some of our really young candidates, take Roy Kineta, for example. I mean, you've got the youth that are stepping up, they're looking at public service, and I think that is one of the first things that re-engages the younger voters, is when they see more people like them that are running for office. And having that balance, I mean, you want the experience, you want people that are older, but you also want that the more youthful perspective. I think the Lieutenant Governor, Josh Tenorio, brings that younger perspective along with the experience of Lilian Guerrero. So I think throughout the party, having role models, having people who have that perspective of the younger voters is key.
Yeah, Sean, do party officials need to pay more interest into filling that bench behind them?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Over the cycle, we've done different events. We're not doing the old Pala circuit kind of thing. We've been doing these Monday night mixes, bringing out food trucks and music, and kind of looking to reach to those younger voters to register to vote, using these activities that are becoming more normal for them as part of their daily lives as either high school seniors or college students, and being right there and then asking them if they're registered and to take and to think about it, and also showing them that in our case of our party, that we're very small business oriented, and we want to continue to encourage that. But it's those types of activities that it's just changing it a little bit different, because they're used to the days of past and all the big bling bling across the villages, but it's changing now, and we have to change with the way that the community is changing, especially in these election cycles.
On that note, is it just me, or we're 6 weeks out from the general election, and it seems to me it's been awfully quiet. There's been, I would say, a lack of excitement. Is that just me, or is that something you're seeing?
I mean, I don't know that it's a lack of excitement as much as, from our perspective, with the information available to everybody, the cycles that you used to have, let's say 20 years ago, where there was a lot of advertising pushed out and you had to do a lot of specific things. I think nowadays people who are voting can pull that information. They can go to websites, they can do their own research, they can figure out what's going on, and really be 100 times more informed today than they used to be back when they depended on somebody actually sending them information on why. So, back in the old days that you had to have these, there was a lot of emphasis on flyers and on, getting all the information out, letting people know what was your background, what were you going to do. I think the voters nowadays can get to that information. So I don't know that it's quiet as much as I think there is some value in instead of the information being pushed down people's throats, making it available, and letting people look and see for themselves. And I do think that in the coming month, there's going to be an increase in information available. Again, I've always said that it's really important to compare past performance. I mean, when you're looking, anybody who's going to make a good decision about who's going to be the next leader needs to judge the past performance. And we've got, from the gubernatorial side, 2 really good cases of past performance that can be evaluated and reviewed. And then from a lot of the legislative candidates, they've had a lot of platforms, thanks to KUAM, thanks to a lot of the other media, where they're able to sort of put forth what they stand for, and people at their leisure can pull it up on their phones or see for themselves to make those decisions.
Well, what do you think, Sean? Has it been a little bit more on the quiet side compared to, say, 12 years ago when Felix last served?
I think that, yes, it's much quieter, but that doesn't mean that work isn't happening. I think for both campaigns are, again, reaching out to those voters. They are knocking on doors. I think they're probably canvassing your house right now while you're here sitting on the set, but they are out there doing that work. It isn't, it is a bit of a lull. But that doesn't mean that campaigns are just sitting back and waiting. And there's a lot of events that are still happening. There are fundraisers. There are events and the candidates meeting other people and getting around the entire community. And again, knocking on doors, the retail politics that we're all so used to. And so that lull, try not to be too sucked into the fact that it might be a lull. It's actually still pretty busy.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more of The Hub right after this.
Stay on top of breaking news and the biggest stories of the day with NBC News Daily. Get in-depth reporting from across the country and around the world, tips to take care of your health and your wallet, and up-to-the-minute local news. NBC News Daily, weekdays on NBC.
All right, I just want to continue with that. One more point on that theme, this lack of excitement. I guess a lot of people, especially the older folks, are used to, all these rallies, campaign signs, political signs all over the place. It just doesn't seem the same at this point. And I think you guys are attributing that to, like you said, Ginger, more social media, more other ways of getting the information.
We have our little chat with the campaign, and they're still putting up signs, and still people are asking for them. They're giving stickers. We're still seeing people asking for the red hat and being a part of that movement. So it might seem like a bit of a lull, but there's still a lot of activity behind the scenes. And again, we're trying to get people to register to vote because early voting is about to start very soon too. So we got to keep on chugging along. The cycle's coming to an end very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, and from our perspective, there are some big events that are coming up. So there's going to be a big event coming up, I believe, on Sunday. That's the first one. It's sort of a regional gathering, and then like a couple days later, we've got another regional gathering. We had a very successful fundraiser the other night, which was very well attended over at the Hyatt. I was there, and there was a lot of people there. So there is activity going on all across the island, and I think people are really engaged. I think, in terms of a paid media perspective, it's been a little bit quiet. But I think in terms of the level of excitement and activity and the things that are going on, they're going on, and you're going to see a lot more of that in the coming weeks.
All right, Sean, what would you advise the gubernatorial campaigns to focus on in these last few weeks?
Well, the biggest thing to focus on is getting out and reaching out to voters. And social media can only take you so far. It's about that retail knock on the door, going right to the villages and saying hello and asking about the issues that face them today, and asking them, quite frankly, where they want to see the direction of the island. So it's a lot of door knocking now. I would be telling the candidates if they're inside the headquarters, they need to get back out and keep knocking on those doors. And they have been, and they're canvassing all over the island right now, which is it's about to get even bigger. So we're really excited about this idea of getting out and meeting our voters again. We've been at it for since February. It's to continue it in the final push to get everyone out to vote, get that voter turnout much higher, and ensure a victory in November.
Ginger,
well, not only that, I think there's going to be there were supposed to be at least 5 debates. So these debates are going to really bring out a lot of the issues for the people of Guam to be able to listen to the 2 different perspectives. It was really disappointing when we heard that the Camacho Ada team has turned down the invitation from the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce, which I thought, here we go again with the misogyny, right? Is this
if we invited the governor to the Lincoln dinner, would that be any? We could have invited her. Would she have gone?
So you're calling the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce partisan?
I said we should have invited her. It's her whole club.
Are there Republicans that are members of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce?
Actually, those are a great idea. They should get some of the Republican members and Democrat members to form it out.
Anyway, so that'll be interesting to see. But there's going to be a lot of other debates. There's the Great Debate. There's a Chamorro language debate. There's just a lot of debate opportunities. So I think those are going to be an opportunity for people to really hear the differences between the candidates. I think the other thing that's really important is really getting out the platforms of the 2 campaigns, really what they're going to do, and the records of the 2 candidates from the gubernatorial side of things. I think that there is going to be a lot more information coming out on the records, comparison and contrast on the key issues, because I think one of the biggest hurdles, honestly, that we have on our side is reminding people of the record of Felix Camacho. Because if you think about it, people who were 25 years old during his re-election campaign back in 2006, they're in their 40s now. So that means that everybody under the age of 40 probably doesn't remember what that record was, doesn't remember the challenges, doesn't remember how they were dealt with. So that is something that is going to need to sort of be put back out there so that people have an accurate comparison of two records.
And the record's it's already out there. I mean, his record speaks for itself. But I mean, we're definitely not seeing a 49-page platform from the current administration, because if it reduced to a 7-page pamphlet, we know that they still haven't finished half that work. And so the idea is we'll understand the policies as it progresses, getting in the villages, knocking doors, and reminding them about what is the governor of Guam today, what has she done over the last 4 years for you. We can go back, it's fair to look at records, but when it looks at the current mandate of today, what has she done in the last 4 years, and the people have to decide that.
Let's talk about those issues. What are the issues then that are going to resonate with the votership? What do they want to know about? What do they need to hear about?
Crime.
I completely agree. I think crime is one of the big issues. And what's interesting about crime when you look at it, right? So crime has been around forever. Okay, when I lived in League One Terrace as a little kid, I remember one time my mom and I looked out the window one afternoon, and there was a guy breaking into our neighbor's house, and this was like in the 70s. And I remember we called GPD, and we were worried because we were living in a neighborhood where a robber or a burglary was happening like right across the way from us. So crime has been there the whole time. But what happens is nowadays you get these anecdotal issues where people will just say that, you'll do an interview, you'll talk to somebody and they'll say, oh, crime is so much worse. So the way that you can really look at crime is you have to look at statistics. So one of the things I love to do, I'm a numbers person, I love to look at statistics. So if you look at all the years that Felix Camacho was in office, right, the average number of arrests under Felix Camacho was about 3,300 arrests per year if you average it all out. Last year, under the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration, last full year in 2021, there was over 4,040 arrests, meaning that the police now, and it was a steady increase. I mean, it went from 2,600 to 3,500, I think it was, to over 4,000. Over 4,000 is a record from the last 2 decades. That is the most arrests by the Guam Police Department in over 20 years. That, to me, demonstrates the progress that you see being made by the Guam Police Department. Look at crystal methamphetamine being taken off the streets. All the years that Felix Camacho was in office, they took off 6 pounds per year of crystal meth.
Let me get
now
Sean in here,
we're
because
at
I think he
100 pounds
might
per
dispute
year.
how you're...
And so, I mean, again, we're looking at the last 4 years. So to say you have stats, I'm great that we're talking about the numbers for today, because the governor hasn't, and the chief of police has not put out a uniform crime report. They just put out the 2021 last week. And in all fairness, there hasn't been any stats until just last week. So I can't wait to see the 2021 numbers. That'd be great, because 19's there, it started great. But again, it goes back to leadership. And again, when we look at the numbers, let's be fair. If you don't see it until just recently, I hope they publish it. I want to see those numbers. I think the whole community is willing to see about those numbers. And I'll be first one to say, hey, I want to see it.
I think when we speak of crime too, I think what's creating most of the crime, a lot of people argue, is drugs. So
Yes.
that is kind of the root of the problem.
We're all probably in agreement on that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think they're looking at the price of drugs and what people are doing about it. And also, it's opportunity. If there's no opportunity, then it makes it very difficult for people they feel that they can't make ends meet. So resorting to some really bad things.
Yeah.
Well, I would point people to the editorial today that came out from the head of police, the head of customs, and behavioral health, where they're talking about the record and the numbers. And, the thing that's really interesting, people talk about, Camacho really didn't have anything he could point to during his term, so he points to the Mandania Task Force, which was really during the Calvo administration. And if you look at the Mandania Task Force, which was around for 2 years, they confiscated like 1.5 pounds of meth 1 year and less than 1 pound of meth another year. The current administration has taken over 100 pounds of meth off the streets. They initiated a program at the post office, which was their task force, because that's where most of it comes in. It doesn't come in through the airport. I mean, you can't even get like a bottle of water through the airport. Of course, drugs are not going to come in through the airport. It's at the post office. So the effectiveness of the Mandania Task Force was like 1 pound of meth. And you look at the effectiveness of the current police and customs department, who in 2021 took off 195 pounds of meth off the streets. And this year, they're almost at 100 pounds. And that was in the editorial today that I read. So when you look at results, and by the way, the Uniform Crime Report, it always comes out this time of year. It's standard. I mean, it's there. If you go back, you can see all of them. They're online.
So the 2020 numbers come out in 2022. But also, I mean, it's not just that. It's the idea that when we think about the last 4 years, that was another governor. And again, this election today that's about to happen is about the mandate of Lou Leon Guerrero. She is the one who's the current governor of Guam, and this community is looking at her record. You can look at Felix's. It's a big one. He built school. He built police stations. He's bought just the same amount of police cars in his 8 years. He did way more than the current administration. But let's look at what happened, over the last 4 years. That's the biggest consideration for all of us.
All right, got to take another quick break, and we'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
This year, we're expanding our Decision 2022 platform to include comprehensive coverage of the election in the Northern Marianas. Stay with KUAM News for candidate conversations on Pacific matters, interviews with the gubernatorial teams, coverage of debates and forums, and live coverage on the general election night. We're your news leader, the voice of the Marianas.
He gets a chance for everyone to talk about.
All right, back for our last few minutes. Wanted to talk to you guys about President Biden has declared the pandemic, some say mistakenly, the pandemic is over. And you guys came out with, Sean, a news release today saying that the governor should withdraw the emergency declaration. Can you elaborate?
When there really is very little restrictions left, when quarantine times and dates have been adjusted down that are really negligible according to doctors on Guam, and looking at the hospitalization, it's time to end it. There is important for us all to remember that with a community that has suffered with cases and deaths, but importantly, I think people forget vaccinations. We have one of the highest vaccination rates in the country, over 90%. And with that, and you have that remaining balance on the population who really can't get vaccinated unless they're very young children, it really is time to move on and reopen the government. I was hoping, like everyone, that in November there was that push to maybe make that big push to open. And then we could have been a little bit better off. But, again, today, and based on Public Health's press conference yesterday, again, the data is there telling the story. Then I think and even Governor and Tony and Senator Ada are really adamant we should end the emergency now.
Ginger, did the president misspeak? Is the pandemic over, and should the emergency be lifted?
So if the president has made a really good point that the pandemic has moderated into an endemic. It's something that we're going to have to live with for a really long time. But, the first point that I would make, and listening to what Sean just said, is explain to me what's closed again. The government of Guam is working at 110% all the way across the board. I'm not sitting here with a mask. You're not either.
There's still restrictions in hospitals for masks. There's still restrictions in all healthcare centers.
In a hospital, when you're talking about people who are immune compromised, and you're talking about a disease which continues to circulate on the island, asking people to wear a mask is common sense. People in Asia wear masks to prevent each other from getting the flu. I mean, this has been a practice in Asia for, I don't know, decades.
But in America, most other places are open.
Okay, but this isn't Trump world, okay? So this whole idea of not wearing a mask, I mean, a key fact that I think they're ignoring is that the emergency declaration, one of the key things, 40% of the families on Guam need SNAP, which is emergency assistance that continues to help with feeding their kids in schools and providing relief to those families that are still recovering, that still need to be able to get on their feet because of the economic impact of COVID. And that goes away if you end the public emergency status. That federal assistance goes away, but there's no mandate for masks anymore.
But there's also no reason why they can't end it and then do another executive order only for SNAP benefits. That's the flexibility that the Office of the Governor can bring to this particular fight.
And another really interesting statistic? Do you know how many months they had emergency declarations under Felix Camacho during his 8 years?
Was it SARS? Was it
33 months. 33 months. Do you know how many months we've had emergency declarations under Lou and Josh? 31. So technically, Felix Camacho had some kind of an emergency declaration for 2 more months than we have.
Those were natural disaster related, as I
It doesn't matter. If you're comparing apples to apples,
Outbreaks in northern and southern Guam.
Emergency declaration. So they're picking on us for having the emergency declaration, and they had it for longer.
Just trying to give our people the freedom to move on.
Is part of it too the emotional and maybe psychological idea of lifting the emergency so that people feel like, okay, this is over and we can move on? Is that part of it too?
I mean, I think that if the governor she has continued to say it's about data, and the data and doctors have said it's time to move on, why not?
And my point is, we've moved on.
Yeah.
She's lifted the mask mandates. You go to a store, you go
take
to a
the next
restaurant.
step and lift the emergency
Nobody's
order.
wearing a mask, but the emergency order, if it's providing federal SNAP assistance
Take
to
it
the
off
people
and
of
put it back
Guam,
on.
the governor will take it.
You work for a governor's office. You remember how that works.
Speaking of moving on, it's time for us to move on because we're out of time. As always, thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. I'm Nestor Licanto. That's a wrap. We'll see you again next week on The Hub.
Thanks.